Now.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Time to talk food, minimalist cooking with Jules Clancy over at the stonesoup.com. Good morning to you, Jules.
Morning, Glenn.
Good morning. Now, today we're talking about eating on a budget. Now, last year you wrote a post about, and in fact, I guess you experimented on yourself, about eating for $2 a day, which sounds absolutely impossible. How did it go?
I actually ended up doing it over 3 days. And there was an organisation, I think if they were Australian, that were looking to like kind of raise awareness about extreme poverty. So they were running a kind of challenge to get people to eat for $2 a day for 30 days and kind of get sponsorship and stuff to raise money.
Yeah.
So I just did it for a few days to give people ideas for recipes, and I was actually surprised at once I got into that mode of thinking, it wasn't too difficult to do. Of course, I was eating a lot of pasta.
Yeah.
But I was able to have some lentils and some veggies one day. And I did make a frittata one day with, I used free-range eggs, but I used the price of caged eggs, which was probably not the best ethically. But, and it's kind of eating broccoli soup and toast for breakfast, and I made my own bread and I was making my own peanut butter and stuff like that. So
is it possible to eat balanced though and eat healthy for a longer period of time?
I think for over a longer period of time, it's really difficult to kind of, particularly to get your fresh fruit and veg in. It's really, really difficult. And it was really everything. It was really carb based meals. With a little bit of veg, and I think over a long period of time, it's not healthy. And I actually got a guy who left a comment on my blog saying that someone had done a study in Queensland, and they reckon that there's no way you can eat a balanced diet on less than $5 a day per person. So he was quite irate, and they'd actually kind of looked at the nutritional kind of profile and what we need and everything. So I think longer term it's not, but you can do it for short term.
Well, that leads us on to your latest post on this, on eating on a budget. You've got some tips for $5 dinners, or 7 tips for reducing your food costs overall.
Yeah. So I've actually this year I thought, because I had some great feedback from that last year, so this year I thought rather than making it crazily $2 a day, that I'd just do some $5 dinner recipes, because a lot of people, everyone at some stage in their life goes through a time when they're kind of a bit short of cash. So the idea here is to kind of keep it simple, keep it cheap, but also kind of make it as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
So
let's run through some of these tips.
Yeah, so kind of the first one is to use everything you pay for. So I've got a recipe up that's using tuna in oil, and I'm actually using the tuna to cook some stir fry some broccoli first. So because we often just throw things like that away, and I've started using the canning liquid from my cannellini beans or my chickpeas and stuff. If I'm making a soup, I'll use that liquid as well. Kind of use it as a stock.
Well, that makes sense, because there's still a lot of flavour in that, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely, and there's some nutrients in there as well, and when you're cooking broccoli, you can chop up the stalks finely and stir fry them as well. And your bones from if you roast a chicken, or you've got your Christmas hands left over. Heaps of things that you can just, if you just think about it, you can actually use them and get some more flavour out of them.
Okay, so use everything that you've actually paid for, and in the process, I guess that leads on to that minimising the waste as well.
Yeah, definitely. So, and and be realistic. So I think for me, probably the thing I throw out most is fresh veg and fruit. That's the things that will go mouldy or off in my fridge. So maybe kind of be a bit more realistic about the way that you shop. And frozen veg might be a little bit more expensive on the day, but when you think about it, that they're going to just keep there until you're ready to use them. Maybe moving to frozen might be a good idea for some of your veg.
Yeah, and there was some crazy statistic I think that came out of the UK that was like a third of food that people buy is actually thrown away and is wasted just sitting in a fridge.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised actually. It's easy to forget about something, and then you go back and you're like, ooh.
Some people are really pedantic about stuff that's in the fridge that goes past the use by date.
Yeah. So actually, I've got a link on to a blog post I wrote last year about that, because I used to work in the food industry. So one of my jobs was, when I developed a new chocolate biscuit, it was my job to figure out what the use by date should be. How long we should set it for, kind of thing. And I was just guessing, So particularly for kind of goods like that. Your kind of biscuits or flour or dry goods or canned goods, the use by date, it gives you an idea of when the product isn't going to taste as good as it should taste, but it definitely doesn't mean it's going to hurt you if you eat it after that. So I've eaten chocolate biscuits that have been 18 months old, and the flavour hasn't been as strong, and sometimes they've had chocolate bloom, but they were still nutritious and sweet and lovely kind of thing.
So sometimes it's best to trust your nose rather than the date that's on the packaging.
Absolutely, yeah. So things like milk and your kind of meat, probably, I think your nose can tell you, but if you're not very confident, probably best to stick to what the packet's telling you. But for most other things, trust your nose, and if it tastes okay, then you'll be fine. Yeah, and if it hasn't got mold growing on it, because mold's usually the first thing, food spoilage organism. It's kind of the toughest, so it's the first thing to grow. So if you're mold free, usually you're fine.
Use your common sense, I suppose. That brings us on to the next tip, I suppose, is common sense about actually questioning whether or not you need stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So, do you really need to have a coffee every day, or could you just do it, kind of switch to just having a coffee on the weekends and then really enjoying it? Or, I've started, I've got a water filter, and so when I go out, I always, fill up I've got a glass bottle that I just fill up with water and take that with me, rather than buying filtered water buying bottled water when I'm out and about. Yeah.
So one thing you don't normally think about with the cost of food is actually the energy that goes into making the food and cooking the food itself.
Yeah. So that's something I hadn't really thought about. And last year I read, there's a food writer, MFK Fisher, she's American, and she was kind of, I read one of her biographies, and she was talking about cooking in the war and stuff. And she went on for ages about, how you can fill up your oven with all these, different things to make the most of your energy. So if you're going to turn the oven on, you wanted to get as much stuff cooked as you could. So I think that's something, there's kind of more to cooking than just the ingredients, and we can be a bit smarter about that.
Yeah, your sixth tip for reducing costs is conduct your own taste tests. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so there's different brands have different prices, and sometimes and these days actually, the supermarket, generic brands, the quality level is improving. So just because something isn't branded doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. But it's it's a product by product thing. So it's a great and it's actually quite fun to do, is to buy 3 different brands of tuna, get out your fork and just have a taste and see which one you actually like the best. And it's not always the expensive one that wins, so we kind of do that here at home a bit with, we've done it with potato chips and all sorts of things. And it's kind of, then you feel confident that you go, okay, well, I'm going to buy the one that I like the best. And, you can be saving yourself quite a bit of money by doing that as well.
And finally, Jules, just be aware of pricing, you say.
Yeah, so I guess I usually don't think too much about my food costs, because I kind of figure if I'm not eating out and I'm buying stuff from the supermarket, then I'm saving money. But it's amazing, kind of how much things can vary. And frozen broccoli can be so much. Sometimes it can be a lot cheaper than fresh, and all that sort of stuff. So just kind of think about what you're doing, and you can actually make a difference to your savings.
Yeah. Okay. And finally, shall we finish on on the quick recipe that you've got with the post, that is broccoli and tuna and a white bean mash?
Yeah. So this is my favourite method of cooking broccoli, and I'm using frozen broccoli for this recipe. So it's kind of actually like a great pantry recipe, because you can you keep the broccoli in the freezer and have your tuna and your white beans in cans in the pantry, and you just need a lemon. And whenever you need a kind of quick healthy dinner, this is a great one to pull out. So you just kind of stir fry the broccoli in a really hot pan, but with the lid on, so it steams on the top and kind of stir fries on the bottom. And then while you're cooking the broccoli, you just drain some canned white beans and give them a mash up and give them a bit of a season to make some kind of a really lovely mash.
Yeah.
And then you just add the tuna and a bit of butter into the broccoli at the end to heat through, and you serve the tuna and broccoli on the bed of white white beans, and it's really lovely.
And the trick is with this one is to actually make it look attractive on the plate afterwards as well.
yeah. So a bit of artful arrangement, always helps.
Because the mash itself is like, I don't know, but obviously very tasty. But just making it look appetizing would be the
cover it up with the broccoli.
Hey, thanks very much. The recipe and those tips are up at the stonesoup.com. And also, I know, Jules, you're very chuffed because you have a post featuring on a very prominent website today as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Zen Habits, Leo Barbato writes a blog called Zen Habits, which is kind of about healthy living, and he's a vegan. So I've actually wrote a post about I've started kind of eating vegan on Mondays, calling it Meatless Monday. I wrote a post called Eat Like Leo, and just kind of went through 3 recipes for what I have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So pretty excited about it. It's one of the top 100 blogs in the world. So
that's got to be good. That's got to be most excellent. Thanks very much, Jules. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, Glenn. See ya.
See ya, Jules Clancy there. Time now here on Kiwi's 29 minutes.